Welcome back to The Explainer. Today we're diving into something deeply fascinating and, honestly, a little unsettling. We're looking at how three classic literary texts envision the total erosion of individual autonomy. And to make these dense, heavy concepts crystal clear, we're going to walk through these chilling worlds using a simple, focused stickman-style animation. I am so thrilled to be your guide as we break down exactly how these visionary authors imagine the loss of human freedom.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today. First, visions of dystopia. Then, Kafka's absurd reality. Orwell's surveillance state. Huxley's hedonistic cage. And finally, choosing our nightmare. So, Part 1. Visions of dystopia and the erosion of autonomy.
Moving right along to Part 2. Kafka and the absurd reality. A helpless descent.
In this explainer, we're looking closely at how societal control is exerted in vastly different yet equally terrifying ways. Whether it's through the meaningless chaos of the universe, the crushing boot of an authoritarian regime, or the soft, numbing embrace of engineered pleasure, the end result is exactly the same. The individual is rendered completely powerless. Now, what's really interesting about this is how Kafka sets this up. Imagine waking up to find the rules of logic simply no longer apply to you. In Franz Kafka's A Country Doctor, our protagonist faces an impossible situation. Caught in a severe snowstorm, he desperately needs to reach a sick patient 10 miles away, but his horse has died. Just as he's completely out of options, a groom and two powerful, unearthly horses suddenly crawl out of an unused, cracked pigsty. The doctor is swept away instantly, his carriage torn along like a piece of wood in a current, while the monstrous groom stays behind to attack the doctor's servant girl, Rosa. He is entirely at the mercy of this absurd nightmare.
When the doctor miraculously arrives at the patient's house in mere moments, the situation just gets more bizarre. The young patient actually begs to die, though initially the doctor thinks the boy is perfectly healthy. But then he discovers a grotesque wound on the boy's right hip, about the size of the palm of a hand, open to the light like a mine. It's filled with worms, as thick and long as a little finger, wriggling their white bodies toward the light. It is a deeply unsettling, visceral representation of unavoidable, inexplicable human suffering that absolutely no doctor can cure.
So the crucial point is that Kafka's dystopia is one of complete, paralyzing impotence. The villagers strip the doctor naked and actually force him into the bed with the dying patient, all while singing a mocking school choir song. When the doctor finally manages to escape on one of the horses, his fur coat trailing behind him in the snow, he realizes he's doomed to crawl through the snowy desert like an old man forever. He is naked, abandoned to the frost of his unhappy age, riding in an earthly carriage with unearthly horses. There's no logic here, you guys, only a helpless descent.
Section 3. Orwell and the surveillance state. Control through fear.
We leave behind the surreal chaos of Kafka and enter a world of cold, calculated precision, George Orwell's 1984. And this brilliantly illustrates its core philosophy: war is peace, freedom is slavery, ignorance is strength. The party forces citizens to accept contradictory truths simultaneously, a concept known as doublethink. By making the populace believe that 2 + 2 = 5, the state successfully breaks their mental autonomy. Because, think about it, if you don't even own your perception of reality, you literally cannot rebel.
To totally dominate the populace, the party uses several methodical tools. First, you have the two-way telescreens, blasting propaganda and morning exercises while constantly watching every single move Winston makes. Then there's newspeak, which is a language deliberately designed to narrow the range of human thought. There's even the concept of face crime, where just looking incredulous is a punishable offense. They manufacture constant war, boasting about floating fortresses, just to keep resources scarce and citizens fearful. And finally, they literally erase and rewrite history every single day, ensuring the party is always unconditionally right.
But even in this suffocating environment, human nature kind of claws its way out. Take this brief, high-stakes moment of rebellion. The girl with dark hair, Julia, falls in the corridor with her arm in a sling. When Winston helps her up, straight in front of a telescreen, she manages to slip a small, folded scrap of paper into his hand. Her face is pale with fear, yet she masks her emotions instantly. It's this terrifying, intense mini-narrative of hidden defiance under the ever-watchful eye of the state.
Ultimately, however, Orwell shows us that even profound human connection is completely crushed by the state's apparatus of terror. When Winston and Julia are caught and subjected to unimaginable torture in the Ministry of Love, they are broken down until they truly, genuinely wish their pain upon each other. When they meet again by chance at the Chestnut Tree Cafe, the betrayal is absolute. The song crackling from the telescreen, "I sold you and you sold me," cements the chilling reality that the party doesn't just destroy the body, it completely hollows out the soul. Which brings us to Section 4, Huxley and the Hedonistic Cage, Control Through Pleasure.
Let's move to and see how this builds into a completely different type of control. We leave the gray, deprived world of 1984 for the bright, artificial utopia of Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Here, the chains aren't made of iron, they're made of silk. Instead of subjugating people through pain, the world state controls them through pleasure and the drug soma. As the hypnopaetic proverb goes, a gram is better than a dam. I mean, why feel sadness, frustration, or existential dread when you can just take a half gram for a half holiday, or a few grams to escape to the gorgeous East for a dark eternity on the moon? They have essentially engineered out all human suffering by engineering out all deep feeling. The world state eliminates deep thought and rebellion by keeping the population constantly distracted. From childhood, citizens are subjected to hypnotic paedic conditioning, sleep teaching that literally programs their morality and class biases. Children are encouraged into erotic play and hyper-complex games like centrifugal bumble puppy just to ensure they remain non-stop consumers. And for adults, there is the constant flow of soma rations and mindless entertainment, ensuring no one ever has the time or the silence to sit and actually think.
This sensory overload reaches its absolute peak at the feelies. In a showing of 3 weeks in a helicopter, the audience holds onto metal knobs to literally feel the movie. Everything from the sensation of a famous bearskin rug to the physical jolt when a character hits their head. The theater is even equipped with synchronized scent organs, pumping out aromas like thyme, lavender, and ambergris. The whole shebang is designed to perfectly replace genuine human emotion and connection with entirely synthetic, meticulously engineered stimulation.
Now, this total conditioning leads to some intense culture clashes, perfectly illustrated when Lenina attempts to seduce John the Savage. Conditioned to view promiscuity as a basic social duty, she cheerfully steps out of her zippet-cami clicknicks. But John, who is raised on a savage reservation and reading Shakespeare, values honor and deep, poetic romance. He retreats in absolute terror, literally flapping his hands to scare her away, eventually calling her a strumpet and threatening to kill her. He simply cannot compute her emotionless, conditioned approach to intimacy.
Desperate to escape the filth of this quote-unquote civilized life, John the Savage retreats to an abandoned lighthouse. He tries to purify himself through hard labor, whittling a bow and arrow, and punishing himself with a whip of knotted cords, just to remember his grief over his mother Linda's death. But in Huxley's world, there is absolutely no private space for suffering. Within days, reporters from the hourly radio, wearing aluminum stovepipe hats with microphones springing out like jack-in-the-boxes, swarm his sanctuary just to record his pain.
And here is the ultimate tragedy of Huxley's vision. A massive crowd of sightseers arrive in helicopters not to help John, but to consume his torment as a spectacle. They chant, "We want the whip," in unison. When Lenina steps out of a helicopter to see him, John attacks her in this absolute frenzy of grief and conditioned self-loathing. And the crowd? They just watch this horror unfold as if it were another scene in the feelies. An individual's profound, desperate grief is commodified into just another form of cheap entertainment.
All right, Section 5. Choosing our nightmare. Synthesizing the dystopias.
Having walked through these chilling visions, we really have to ask ourselves, how are we being controlled? Orwell's 1984 fears that what we hate will ruin us, a system ruled by pain, constant surveillance, and the complete deprivation of basic human needs. Conversely, Huxley's Brave New World suggests that what we love and crave will be our undoing, a system ruled by mandatory happiness, overindulgence, and engineered pleasure that strips away our humanity just as effectively.
And that brings us to our final, deeply unsettling question. As you look at the world around you today, at the screens in your pockets, the data being collected, the endless stream of entertainment designed to distract you, which nightmare is actually closer to our reality? Are we walking right into the surveillance state, or are we already comfortable inside the hedonistic cage? I'll leave you to ponder the fragility of your own autonomy. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep asking the hard questions.